Welcome back to another episode of A Gift from Adversity. My name is Juri Love. I'm your host. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we are recording episode 165. Before I introduce our guest, I want to introduce my book, which is the same title as this podcast. The title is A Gift from Adversity, and this book was published a couple years ago, but it's available on Amazon. And the subtitle of this book is Overcoming Sexual Abuse, Domestic Violence, Bullying, and Homelessness. Please check it out. A Gift from Adversity by Juri, Juri, Love on Amazon. After I published this book, I got a lot of comments and feedbacks from a lot of people from all around the world and people sharing their adversity. So I felt very compelled to start this safe space and a platform where people can not only share their adversities, but also the tools that they use to overcome and a gift that came from it. And I'm very grateful to have 165 episode that we are recording today. And people all over from the world are sharing their stories. So let's invite our guest. Hi, Addie. Thank you
Hi.
so much for coming to A Gift from Adversity, episode 165 today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, can you tell our audience your name, where you're coming in from today, and also what you do, and if you have any social media or anything that you want to promote?
Yep. So my name is Addie Page. I'm a poet, activist, and performance artist. Currently based in Providence, Rhode Island, and most of my life I've spent in Providence, Rhode Island. Beautiful city. And I'm not like super into social media. I'm actually kind of old fashioned, but my Facebook is just my name. So ADDIEPAGE. And I'm currently promoting my book, Flensing, A Hymn to Trauma, which is a poetry anthology that utilizes the lens of Hindu theology and culture to address industrialized and institutionalized trauma, and specifically the American troubled teen industry. So that is available at Heartleaf Books on Atwells Avenue in Providence. And you can also just message me directly on Facebook if you're interested.
Is your book on Amazon?
It's not currently. It's not the most business savvy tactic, but it's more like an ethical and moral thing for me. Is I wanted so it was published on November 4th, actually. I remember that because it was the day that Mayor Mamdani was elected in New York, which was, I'm half Arab, so that was a big deal for me. And I wanted to do the first year, so until November 26th, of just keeping it with physical copies here in the city, and distributing it that way, just to make it kind of like a local thing. And then after that, should be live on all sort of digital platforms.
That's very exciting. I think a lot of people should get hands on your book, and so that people can learn more. So let's dive into
Hmm.
the first question, which is the adversity. So can you tell our audience what was your adversity?
Yeah, so and it's really the subject of the book taken through a poetic lens. So during my adolescence, essentially, I ended up in what is euphemistically called a therapeutic boarding school. That's the terminology, but the reality of it is, it's a high end for profit, like total institutional setting, with very little state or federal oversight. And I mean, they're essentially these organizations are owned by like holding companies, which are like diversified parent companies that are allowed to, for the most part, analyze or assess their own efficacy and ethics. They're not really looked at very much. In the case of the particular school that I attended, the parent company has lobbyists in the Massachusetts legislature, so it makes it makes it very difficult to kind of come up against that. but I was there from 15 to 18 in that setting, and I'm blessed that as a transgender person, I had legally had my gender marker changed prior to that occurring. So I was, thank God, housed with other girls, because that would have just been like an additional trauma to have been housed with males, which would have been the case if I was still considered like legally male when I went over there. But primarily, that's the thing, the trauma that I dealt with, is just 3 years of being in that kind of almost prison-like environment, and just seeing and experiencing a lot of really difficult stuff that uh, was tough to process for a long time, and that I didn't even really like talk about or think about, if that makes sense, for a long time, and then kind of started approaching more around 2022. So like I graduated in 2016, and then didn't really interact with the subject until 2022, and then now addressing it more publicly and openly. And I think it's a beautiful thing that although I'm not a big social media person, this industry was kind of completely in the shadows, and people didn't really know about it. So of course nobody wanted to talk about it until, I want to say, in the past like 5 years, TikTok and artists like the rapper, I think she goes by Bad Baby. She was also in a similar setting and she talked about it. Paris Hilton has talked about it, and just I think it's really important through the lens of art and through the lens of activism for this subject to finally be getting some light, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country. And also, I want to say that the Unsilenced Project does incredible work around this, and they have all the I got the T-shirt on right now. They have all the statistics and all the legal resources and information if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about this subject.
Thank you, Addie. I definitely listened to Paris Hilton's stories, and then how awful these institutions are in the name of therapeutic settings. Before I forget everything, I worked in the DYS and the DCF. I had a nonprofit called Genuine Voices, which I definitely told a lot of story on my book, A Gift from Adversity. What I had to witness there was really inhumane. Sometimes the in the name of rehabilitation, there are many things that I saw. Now, one thing I had to tell you, this is out in public, that some of the staff were absolutely abusing the kids in the bathroom where there's no camera, that they were federally charged, and that detention program was in Quincy. It was outskirts of the bridge. It was called Long Island in Massachusetts, not New York. And that got shut down completely after the federal charges of several staff, not one, abusing children.
No, and that's the goal, I think, for all of these programs, at least from my perspective, is for them to be shut down, hopefully at some point or another. The particular school that I attended, which is in Swansea, Massachusetts, is still very much functional. And unfortunately, in October of 2025, there was a death there where a staff member, to my understanding, was assaulting a 14-year-old student, and she was attempting to defend herself, and she kicked out at the staff, and the staff did lose her life in that case. And I mean, my gut reaction when I heard the story is, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? If you're going to abuse and assault children, something might happen like that. But I think the bigger issue in that story is that this young girl, this 14-year-old child, is facing serious felony charges for what, to me, having been on the inside of that program, is a clear-cut case of self-defense. I mean, literally, when you think about it, just from what was published in the news, not any speculation on my part. They say that the staff member was kicked in the chest. Well, unless you're an Olympic gymnast, which I'm assuming this 14-year-old girl isn't, you can't get your foot up to kick someone in the chest unless you're on the ground already. You know what I mean? So it's a very unfortunate case, and I think I saw on social media directly after that happening, people just saying the most horrible things about the child. Not about the abuser or about the institution. I mean, I remember seeing one comment where someone said that the child should get the death penalty. This 14-year-old little girl, for defending herself. But the school is very much still active and very much still making a lot of money from what they do. And I hope that, I mean, I don't have any grandiose ideas about my book shutting down the industry, but I do hope that some of, if people read it, what they can see and connect to can maybe help people to understand the seriousness of this topic, because it really is it's in the shadows, and it is kind of not talked about enough, but it's a very, very, very serious topic, and people die, you know. So
Now, how did you get placed in that situation from the beginning? Because kindergarten to middle school, elementary school,
mhm.
you went to public school, correct?
Correct. Correct.
So how the hell did you end up getting into this facility?
Yeah, so at age 13, I was sexually assaulted, and I did not emotionally or mentally react to that very well at all. And so 13 to 15, I was having a very difficult time. I was hospitalized a couple of times for feeling suicidal, or trying to behave in that way, and I was self-harming pretty seriously at that time. Um, just as a reaction to that traumatic experience. My sister was our parents had passed away, so my sister was my legal guardian at that time. She was in her early 20s. She was overwhelmed with the entire situation, and that sort of led to outside parties, so-called professionals, encouraging, pushing, pressuring her, saying, "You can't handle, your 15-year-old sister who is in this mind state. Why don't we get her over somewhere where they can handle her?" And of course, I mean, it's a beautiful campus that they have very nice presentation. So my sister didn't. I truly believe, to this day, that my sister had no inkling of what was actually happening at that place. And I didn't tell her myself, which is something that I regret. But I don't blame her at all for that situation. I mean, from the outside looking in, it's a beautiful facility, and it looks, there's an Olympic-sized swimming pool, there's a koi pond, there's farm animals. I mean, it looks really nice, and they have a great pitch, I guess. But so that's sort of how it happened, where I went over there, and sort of the spiel, I guess, or the way that they address it, when all the girls who come in, is it's like, oh, like if you're doing well, like you'll be here 6 months. But that's not the reality of it. At least from what I experienced and what I saw was, you're there until you graduate. You're there. That's that for the most part. I mean, there's some exceptions. There's some cases where parents will pull kids out because they do feel like something's going on, or they want to do something differently. Or cases that my dear friend, who she's not with us anymore, she's actually the person that I dedicated the book to, Jen, who was in the school with me. If you're too problematic, then they send you to sort of an even more restrictive environment, if you can imagine that, which they do have a facility for that within the umbrella of that company. But yeah, so that's how I ended up there. And like I say, I was there from 15 to 18. But when I first came in, told 6 months if you behave yourself, and I'm not going to be a big deal. And I think that's probably how it was marketed to my sister also. It was like, we're not disappearing your little sister. We're just 6 months, just get her feeling better.
So, if you don't mind telling us, the 6 months led to 3 years.
Correct.
Why?
Profit margins. I mean, that's how these companies work, right? It's not based on anything that the kids actually do. From everything that I've experienced, it's based on, I believe, the tuition at that particular facility was roughly $500 a day. So it like it yeah, so it shakes out to like a little bit more than a Brown University tuition. When you count it up, and I mean they want to continue receiving that, right? So when you go in, um, 6 months is the pitch that, oh, well, it should only take this much unless there's like a big issue or whatever. But the reality of it is that they make a lot more money if you stay there 2-3 years. That's what it's about, and they also have the power of the pen in that environment. So they can say, oh, well, we don't think she's adjusting well, so maybe add on another 6 months, or she is doing really well, and we wouldn't want to freak her out by putting her back out into society, so let's look at keeping this a little bit longer, and then we'll address it next quarter. I mean, that's how they do it. But it's about profit, and when you go in there, when you're a new kid comes onto the dorm, and they're thinking that, like, oh, I'm going to be here 6 months, and they're saying that, it's like everybody else knows you were going to be here longer than 6 months. Nobody says that. Like, even us as the other students, we're not like, oh no, they're actually lying to you. It's like, that's something you're going to discover on your own. But that's the reality of it. Yeah, it's not like a specifically a me thing, or something that I can say like, oh, I had it especially rough. That's just how they address it in general, is just extension, so that they can keep profiting.
Now, I have a live comment coming in,
Sure.
which is exciting. Michael Balling, our
Mhm.
mutual friend, thank you for sharing your path to recovery. You are brave for opening the discussion of too many hidden lives. That's what he said. So, what happened in that setting? Like, what did you see? I know Paris Hilton
Mm.
mentioned about sexual abuse that happened, or so many discipline that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a number of things. I mean, I was lucky, if you want to say that I was not sexually abused in that particular facility. But I had classmates that were, for sure. And I mean, there was actually a case, if you want to call it that, where one of my classmates, I won't say her name out of respect, was sexually assaulted by a senior staff member, and it was reported to DCF in Massachusetts. It was investigated. It was substantiated, and there's actually a report that folks can still find about that, online, about the it's like the Massachusetts Disability Rights Coalition, or I don't have the exact name of the organization, but they like kind of published all of the public details about this particular situation, but it was never prosecuted, with the excuse being more or less that the student was 17 at the time, which is above the legal age of consent in Massachusetts, and so the idea was that, well, she could have been okay with it, which yeah, right. I mean, and especially in that power dynamic where someone can literally beat you for saying no to something like that, there's no consent in that environment. But that's, I think, the legal defense, as far as I'm aware, of that particular thing. But yeah, no, it definitely does happen there. And more commonly, though, is just like, I think, like, physical and psychological abuse is a lot more common than sexual in that environment, because they can frame any sort of like physical injury as like a therapeutic restraint or like therapeutic intervention. But yeah, it's a pretty common approach, is that, and just kind of like, socially isolating and breaking down, people. I mean, honestly, I said to my therapist not too long ago that they're really good at what they do, and somebody needs to go, gather these people up and send them overseas so that they can actually use these tactics in like combat or whatever, because they're very good at figuring out how to get inside your head, and I feel like that could be better used than on teenage girls, in a place like that. But yeah, so there's just a lot of that. And I had one. I mean, I'm trying to think of like the standout examples. I had one classmate who had her ankle broken during a therapeutic restraint. Um, yeah, so that type of thing. Um, it's a it's a pretty violent environment for sure.
What are the verbal things you mentioned about psychological abuse? Do you remember anything that the staff said about you that is still like shaping your image, or maybe something that you cannot get rid of from your head?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of work to not to de-internalize those things and not think of myself in those ways. But they're very they frame everything as like they're doing you a favor, right? Even the physical violent aspect of it, it's like, well, we're doing this thing to help you, right? It's tough love or whatever. And if you weren't so messed up, or if you weren't such a brat, or if you weren't such a troublemaker or whatever, we wouldn't have to do these things. And there's a lot of, I mean, can I swear on this show? Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify. I was told in a group therapy session that I was a slut for getting sexually assaulted at 13. So that's kind of the that type of thing. I mean, they definitely want to keep you in a state where you think you are the problem, and I did when I was in that environment. I did think I was the problem, and where you're grateful for whatever they're doing to you, which is like sick, but that's kind of the thing. I think in terms of things that are still shaping me today, as you asked, I remember one staff member. It was kind of like a meta moment, because usually they keep the veneer of like, oh no, this is all therapeutic, this is all good for you. But I had one staff member that I was particularly not friendly with, who said to me, when you get out of here, you're going to be so fucked up, nobody's ever going to love you. So it's when that I think about that sometimes, and there is a poem toward the end of the book about that specific incident, because whenever I'm having sort of difficulties in relationships, friendships, professional, and anything where I feel like I'm maybe not presenting myself in the best way, I do think back to that, like, oh, nobody's ever going to love you because of what we did to you here, essentially. Comment. So that probably is like what's, I would say, in terms of like verbal, what still affects me.
I'm extremely sorry. I want to share something that just occurred to me, that so you mentioned about the sexual abuse that occurred at 13 and then you were called slut. I was called whore by my own father, who sexually abused me between age 8 to 13. And he was a town hall worker in a small village where he manipulated all the teachers and then police officials that I was the traitor. I was ungrateful. I was actually called to the teacher's room suddenly during the school, and then I was blamed for like speaking out.
Right.
I
I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Well,
That's
thank you.
awful,
But in
especially.
Japan, yeah,
Yeah.
in Japan, there's like discipline, so called, what you say,
Yeah.
so normalized. Even like say volleyball practice, the teacher smack at you, like no slap you,
Yep.
get a mark.
Yeah.
Now, who is under umbrella? You said profit. I don't understand. Is it like under DCF, DYS? It has not, or it has
No,
nothing to do with,
private company. Private
or
company.
it's a private company.
Private company. Yeah. Hmm.
So does school recommend you, like, or your sister was recommended by who? Like who recommended her?
My sister was recommended by DCYF, the Rhode Island. They were the ones who
Oh
said that,
my gosh.
because they do partner. So this particular school in Massachusetts accepts from, I believe, 5 states. It's New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and the last one is either Maine or New Hampshire. I can't remember, but they partner with different states. So it was a state worker that told my sister that this would be the best route to go for that. I mean, they're not directly involved. They don't manage these facilities, and they don't really go into these facilities, but they definitely promote them for
Now,
sure.
how did your parents pass? You said both parents died?
Yeah, correct.
Why?
Yes. So my father passed away from complications with surgery and medical malpractice situation, where he's having a minor outpatient procedure that, long story short, ended up being fatal. And then my mother passed away from breast cancer a year following that, which is why I was with my sister.
How old were you when you lost your parents?
So my father passed uh, a month and a half ish before I turned 13, and then my mother passed 2 days before I turned 14. So
And who sexually abused you? You don't have to name it, but was that a family member? You don't.
no, it was not a family member. So directly after, when my mother went into the hospital, the last time with her cancer situation, I was briefly placed, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, with a foster father, while my sister went through the proper paperwork to get custody of me. So it was that person that did that to me.
So the foster father was unrelated to your family member, but was
That's
kind of
correct.
like DCF or like
Yeah, yeah. So he was registered with DCYF
oh my gosh.
as like an emergency foster placement or whatever, because it was just going to be like a short-term thing. So they just tossed me in there with him, and so that's how that came to pass.
That is unbelievable. I'm so sorry. Now, I can relate to you that when you are a teenager and then not yet on your will sexually exposed, but those violation of physical sexual abuse, especially sexual abuse, can absolutely for a long time mess up your brain, and then your self-esteem, and I'm still suffering with it. I'm gonna be 50 this year, and I didn't think that my life would be this bad until like I don't know. Until I think I'm turning 50 soon, and then like and I never really felt beautiful, enjoyed my life, all that stuff. Now, you mentioned about the mental stage that your sister was told it's not capable of, that you were placed in this place. I just want to empathize and also amplify what would happen to us survivor of child sex abuse. You are minor, and I just want to let you know that I had no idea what it was called till 22.
Really?
I didn't even know what sexual abuse was. I didn't even know what PTSD was until I had a total burnout and a mental breakdown when I came to America, second semester of Berklee College of Music, the best music school in the world, that I got a scholarship and it came. I
Wonderful.
was so happy, but I
Mhm.
had abortion and had depression, and I had to drop down to half a credit, which I even failed.
Oh, okay.
Just want to let you know that thank you so much for shedding the light. Now, how did you come to speaking out? I mean, like that 2016 that you graduated and 2022 that you started to do work on poetry, then you're speaking out on a podcast today. I really appreciate it. Now, what happened between 2016 to 2022? What was your journey like in between that?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time. I mean, kind of trying to bury it. And I mean, when I initially left, I didn't. Kind of ties back to what you were saying about not knowing what certain things mean or are for a long time. Is I didn't really like leave there with the idea that I had been like abused. I mean, I was obviously. I mean, they're again, the physical violence there is like impressively bad. But I didn't leave there with that idea. I just kind of thought that that was like normal, even though I hadn't had that like in my life before going in. But 3 years is a long time when you're being like mentally programmed to think that this is good for you. So I didn't really like immediately graduate and be like, oh, I want to blow the whistle on this thing. I want to because it was like, what's the point? Like that's normal. That's okay. Obviously it's not, but that's how I was thinking coming out of there. So I was not, in a great state emotionally or mentally, though, for sure. And so, I was kind of partying a lot, doing a lot of drugs, drinking a lot, just kind of trying to, focus on anything other than that. And then I was attending URI directly after that. I was an animal veterinary science major at the University of Rhode Island. And so I was doing that and then kind of juggling that with doing a lot of, as I say, benzodiazepines and alcohol, and just trying to like fill my life with constant stimulus so that I didn't think about these things. And by end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I had cooled down, I guess. I wasn't really. I was done with URI. I graduated from that, and I was just kind of, on my own as an adult for the first time. Not like in a college setting, not anything else, just out in the world. And I had a lot of time to think about things. And I was still using at that time for sure, but I had a lot of time to think about things and understand like, all right, something wasn't okay about that situation, and like I say, I had the opportunity with people starting to speak out on social media and see other people and realize like, oh, this is an industry, this is a network, this isn't like an isolated thing that happened to a bunch of us, in that one environment. This is like, and I knew there were other schools, but like in the umbrella of that company, but like, oh, this is national. And there are multiple of these, companies, and they're, it's happening all over the place. So I think just, seeing that and knowing that I wasn't alone. I mean, I knew I wasn't alone because the other girls that were with me at the school, but knowing that I wasn't, that we as a collective weren't alone, that this was a national issue, I think gave me a lot more confidence to speak about it. Because another thing that they kind of mentally program you is like, oh, no one will ever believe you if you say that this happened, right? And you believe that for a long time. So, but then when I see other people talking about it and being believed, it's like, oh, okay, I can talk about this. And that took a long time. And I mean, shout out to my therapist, because I have an incredible trauma therapist who has, worked with me through this whole process, and from me not even being able to like vaguely describe these things to being able to come on a podcast and talk about it. So I'm incredibly grateful, to her. I have an excellent boyfriend who has been with me pretty much through this whole journey of starting to talk about it. Right. So we got together in early 2022, and he's just been incredibly supportive. And I say he tolerates my my idiosyncrasies or my outbursts around, emotional outbursts around the situation, because it is tough sometimes. But he's been a big instrument in helping me be able to talk about this. And so it was probably like mid 2023 that I started writing the book, and it wasn't intended like when I started it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna write a book or I'm gonna publish it. I was just writing poetry about what I was feeling and what I was thinking about and those experiences that I had. I mean, the book opens with and it's still my favorite because it was something I wrote so early in the process, a poem called After the Shipwreck that I actually wrote while hiking at Swan Point Cemetery on the east side of Providence. And it's just really about, when I accepted mentally that this was a big problem, what had happened to me and to these other girls at my school, I felt really guilty for not speaking out sooner and for not coming to some sort of realization about it, and so that was really weighing on me leading up to the writing of the first poem that's in the book. And I feel like with that I wrote that poem about that feeling, about that guilt, about, wanting to apologize to all the other kids that are going through this because I didn't speak out. And maybe if I did, could have helped things a little bit. I doubt it, but, maybe it could have. And once I wrote that piece, I felt a lot better. I felt a lot less of that weight on me, which led to the title of the book, which is flensing, which is a whaling term that refers to like cutting cubes of fat or blubber away from a whale, and for use in various things. And for me, it was like, well, this poetry is like me, cutting pieces out of myself and putting them on the page, and that's that was a burden that I got out of myself by writing that. And then so probably by the end of 2023, I had a lot of these poems, stacking up, and I just kind of had a conversation that didn't start as a conversation about, oh, you should publish a book, but a conversation with a good friend of mine who just kind of said, people might be interested in seeing this, like, in like, these are powerful, these are well written, and maybe, you know people would be interested in seeing it. And so that came, I shared it around, like, with friends that I trusted, and got positive feedback, and that came to me deciding that, okay, I'm gonna, make it a book and compile it. And so that's what happened.
Now, I have a question for you, and I really thank you for speaking out. Have you gotten any backlash after you publicly speaking out about these institutions? Like, no, did they like threaten you? Like, no. So I'm a journalist,
Yeah.
and I wrote an article about Ukrainian war and a survivor, and it was not me, but my company posted on their official Facebook page. And I saw so many nasty comments on social media and then backlashes. Have you experienced those, like
Yeah.
after you spoke out, or even like a pressure or maybe threat from like officials? Have you gotten any like anything?
Yeah. So being that the book is, I mean, I kind of expect like more of a legal threat around that, because I know these schools are incredibly litigious. And another person I want to thank, I have an incredible lawyer who has kind of briefed me on, like, all right, this is what you can say publicly, this is what you can't say publicly, all of that. So thank you to him. But I've definitely had, as far as the commentary, and hearing from, I've heard from former staff at my school who have, kind of messaged me saying, like, along the lines of, like, that I'm ungrateful, and that, oh, I'm, like, kind of turning the narrative or whatever, instead of either not speaking or speaking positively. And I mean, I think the most alarming thing is I've actually had a former student, reach out and not refute anything that I said, but just be like, this doesn't, like, look good on us, for you to be talking about this. And, like, sure, maybe it doesn't, but that's not really the point. Is for it to look good. I mean, the point is to tell the truth and to have, this reality. Um, yeah. So,
It's
but nothing legal as yet. But I wouldn't be surprised.
it is so weird to me that there is a clear cut. This is not gray area to me. When you hear injustice, that somebody said this, it's, to me, a clear cut, you're bad, you're right.
Right.
It's a kindergarten level.
Yeah.
However,
Maybe don't beat kids. Like.
however,
Mhm.
however, when the money's involved, when the profits involved, I
Right.
don't know who's profiting it at all. But my experience in DYS, for instance, I think you need to have 10 inclusivity use to run the facility. Otherwise, it would shut down. Each one of them costs about $60,000 a year. That time, but I'm not sure, it's maybe increased because they have meal, they have education, they have a counselor, they have nurses, and
Mhm.
it's um you know free of gun violence. It's 100% gun controlled in a
Mhm.
way. A lot of things happen. I've seen a lot of things. And then when the power shifted, when I closed my nonprofit, the chief then, the DYS, told me that what are you doing? You cannot save children. And that's when I just thought my fight was over,
Mhm.
because somehow the money is appalling, like not going this way. Like the money stream is to that industry that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Why do you say it's profit margin? And why would you say it's profitable? And then why do you think this continues?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just say it based on the statistics and the facts, and that's why I encourage people, to go to the Unsilence Project's website and actually see the statistics. I mean, as I say, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't have, I want to say it's like 29 billion that gets funneled into the industry yearly just from taxpayer dollars, but that's not counting the private pay of, at least at my school, $500 a day tuition. It doesn't cost them $500 a day to run that school. It doesn't cost them, $500 a day to manage us. And then on top of that, it's $500 a day per student, right? So then that's magnified quite a bit. It's a very profitable industry, and who's profiting? I mean, I think the executives within these holding companies, because that's so sort of to break down how most troubled teen institutions work, is there's a holding company that has diversified assets. So they don't just own boarding schools. They may own, in the case of the holding company associated with my school, they own like a public health center. They own like like a queer outreach type thing in Boston that they do. I believe they have some connection with the private prison system, but I can't be 100% on that. I don't want to speak inaccurately, but they have diversified assets. And then they have like 13, 14 of these schools, which are the cash cows for it. And the point of having a parent company or a holding company is that if one of these schools were to be exposed for everything that it's doing and were to shut down, the parent company can have plausible deniability and say, well, God, we're just as horrified as all of you are. Look at all these other great institutions that we run. Like, well, that's not an us thing, that's a them thing. And they can condemn that and throw that institution under the bus. But the reality is that they were the ones profiting, the entire time. So I mean, I'm not a big like economics person. I don't know all the details, but I can imagine that if you're getting $500 a day for these students, and maybe, I don't know, being generous, maybe it costs them $50 a day per student to keep everything functional. Uh, you know, that's a huge profit margin. That's a massive profit margin. And I think, yeah, I mean, humans naturally are selfish and greedy animals. It's what we are. So I think that these people at the top of these executive ladders, they don't want to give up that money, and they're also detached from it too. Because I think that most of the folks who are profiting the most in this industry are not on the ground in the schools on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So I definitely think they know what is occurring, but at least to some extent. But they're not the ones who actually have to do it, have to be involved with it. And money is power ultimately, and I think that, yeah, people just don't want to give up the money. And so it's a very profitable business. And they view, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, in this industry, but I think by and large they view children as product. They view children as commodity to be monetized. And so, if they're not looking at it as, oh, we're beating kids, or we're emotionally breaking kids. We're processing product. I mean, they call it the trouble teen industry for a reason, because it's industrial in the way that it functions. And I think a lot of people are making a lot of money, and I can't say specific names for obvious reasons, but a lot of people are making a lot of money for sure.
There are so many things that spinning in my head, and I only have experience with DYS and DCF,
Yeah,
but I've seen it like ADHD in Japan. I've never heard of.
really.
Never, never.
Mm.
We are active kids. I was like running in the woods. I was raised in village. I was always like running around. Like kids are active, but
Right.
then like once you label them ADHD, you can medicate them, right? So like say for instance, like the detention program, I would say 95% of people uh I don't think they had ADHD. It's just my personal opinion. They looked fine to me, but
Yeah.
then, but then because of the diagnosis, I've seen kids injected like orange like medicine thing,
Yep.
and then just a lot of like packages comes every day, and I don't know what they're doing, but I feel like my intuition is telling like something like shady is happening, um,
Sure.
experimenting or something. But it's not just locking the kids up, but also experimenting these things and research is done. A lot of things happens, and then the staff, like I mentioned, I can say in public because it was a news, like a federal charges against children,
Right.
getting abused. I don't know if you heard Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell. So she's an attorney general whose parents were gone. I mean, the father was in prison, and then the mother died on the way to visit him. It's on TED Talk too,
Yeah.
and he has a twin brother who was locked up in prison, died in the prison, but they said unknown death,
Right.
probably or mental institutes. I think he was borderline of a mental, and then the
Hmm.
but then uninvestigated death.
Yeah.
But she became attorney general, and then also, I remember like New York Mayor Eric Adams was dyslexia that had the dyslexia, undiagnosed dyslexia that he demanded in prison that they would demand diagnosis of dyslexia
Hmm.
or even like kindergarten level. So
Right.
I feel like the advocacy, speaking out, somebody like minority leaders that had experienced injustice in the system, that are in the decision making positions, that
Yeah.
are speaking out. Paris Hilton
Hmm.
included. That she has a lot of fame and money. That she I heard her speech on social media. It's heartbreaking, absolutely. But I
Yeah.
have no idea absolutely how to fix it. And I'm not from this country, but I really appreciate you shedding a light. And then people who are listening out there had experienced these things. Like, I just want to encourage people to not be afraid to speak out. And then you are smart to have a lawyer on your side,
Yeah.
the therapist on your side
Hmm.
to protect your self, because sometimes it can get absolutely crazy and scary.
Oh yeah.
So now I want to shift our conversation to the tools that you use to overcome. This
Yeah.
is my favorite part of the podcast. A lot of times, as survivors, we interact with people who, obviously didn't have never experienced these traumas,
Right.
and then say like, okay, forget about it or something. I'm like, okay, I cannot just forget about it. Now, Addie, I want to ask you, I know you have mentioned a lot of things prior, but can you tell our audience what are some of the best tools that worked for you truly to overcome this adversity?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I mean, I'm a religious person myself. I am a practicing Hindu. I'm a religious person, and my faith, both in the school and after leaving, especially after leaving, I want to say like my faith has played a massive role in just sort of my ability to understand and not rationalize, but just put together the pieces of everything that occurred, and in a theological sense, and also just the connection, because I mean places like that thrive on isolation, and when you have a connection with God, you're never isolated from God, so that's been a big thing for me. I mean, when I graduated, even when I was still, doing college and doing substances and all that, I was also attending a beautiful temple here in Providence, Rhode Island, the Vedanta Society of Providence on Angel Street on the east side. And I mean, I just learned so much about my religion and so much about, how I relate to it. And that has helped me so much. And I mean, I don't think I could have written the book because the book is really written through a theological perspective. I wouldn't, I mean, I probably could have written it, but I wouldn't have written it as well, or with what it has, the charm that it has, if I wasn't a religious person. Now I understand that that's not for everybody, especially in, the specific school that I attended was a secular institution. A lot of these schools, especially down south and in Utah, are religious based. So I do understand that people with religious trauma may not really be able to connect with religion as a healing mechanism. But for me personally, it has been, and then just art being the second thing, whatever your art is. I mean, I've met incredible survivors who, everything from, I mean, I know an opera singer who is a survivor, and I know, painters, and just art is such an incredible outlet um for any strong emotion, right? But for these things that we may not really have the words for, or that we're not allowed to talk about. Well, you can not be allowed to talk about it, and you can internalize that and feel that, but you can make a painting about it, or you can write a poem about it, and it gets that emotion out, and helps you, in a really big way. So I think that art has been a massive savior for me. Writing this book has been so therapeutic, so cathartic, and just such a growth and healing journey, for me. And I think the third thing is just learning, and it's really difficult, I think, for program kids, because there's so much betrayal, especially from like the people who are supposed to be supporting you or taking care of you, but really learning to be able to lean on the people that are close to you, and being able to, as I mentioned, with my partner, with my therapist, some great friends that are always there for me, as well, and the religious community, just being able to learn to trust again, learn to, you give people kind of small opportunities to show up for you, and be there for you. And when people prove that they can, then you give them a little bit more trust. And then once they're able to actually feel like you're supported, you know, um, I mean, and I have friends that I say better friends than I deserve, because I don't know how they tolerate some of my, you know, uh, drunk tirades, when that was a big problem for me, or whatever it is. But yeah, I think just leaning into a support network, and learning to trust, those are the three big things for me in terms of skills for. But it's an ongoing process, though. Like, I don't approach this by saying like, oh, I'm healed or I'm fixed. Far from it. You know what I mean? Like, this is PTSD is a lifelong condition, and addiction is a lifelong condition. Even if you're not, actively using, you're in recovery, but it never goes away, right? But I'm on my journey towards a brighter future, and I think that those are the three tools I would say. Religion, art, and just trust. Learning to trust are the big ways that I've started to go in a more positive direction.
Do you mind to share one of the poetry from your book that's kind of short and impactful,
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah, let's see which one.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but for people who might be able to relate to some of the things that you have mentioned.
No, yeah, absolutely. Let me see which one the good one.
to me, like writing is something that really helped me, and especially writing my book as well, A Gift from Adversity,
Hmm.
it helped me to put it in the words. Or, writing a movie script. I recently wrote a movie about human trafficking. It's called Forgive Yourself to Not Forgive. But a lot of dialogue is correlated to the therapy session that I had also. So are you ready?
Yeah, no, no, it's definitely therapy is a big help too. you know. So all right, so this one is one of the last poems because the book is alphabetically ordered. So it's in the W's. This poem is titled "Wanted," um, and it goes. My mother told me that a good girl doesn't protest. My father told me I should take it on the chin. The Gita told me that a righteous war is holy. So I'm asking, dear God, where do I begin? If he wants me, it's a given. There is no need for decision. My body is the idol of a foreigner's religion. These bruises are the sacred ash that covers up my backward cast. I don't believe in ghosts, but still these ochre walls feel haunted. I'm bleeding, but I'm lucky to be wanted.
Oh my gosh. Wow. How do you feel reading that on the podcast?
I mean, it's emotional a little bit, you know. I mean, a little bit anxiety provoking. I'm not really like I I'm new to the performance aspect of things, you know. I mean, I've done a couple of shows recently, but I'm much better at the sitting in my bedroom composing these things than the going out and talking about it or the reciting it. But I think no, I think it's important, and that's what keeps me motivated is just understanding that like this industry isn't going to be toppled, by silence or by forbearance or by being tough. This industry is going to be toppled eventually, hopefully, by a lot of people, a lot of kids, former program kids coming together and talking about it through whatever means that they have. And for me, it's poetry. That's my way of addressing it. So I mean, I feel blessed to have the opportunity to talk about it publicly because not everybody does. So I feel blessed about that. So that's my long-winded answer for how I feel about reading it on a podcast.
Have you ever gotten feedback that were positive, supportive, celebrating,
Yeah.
appreciating? Can you tell us?
Yeah. No, I mean, I have gotten actually a lot more of that than the negative. Like, you think about the negative stuff more, but I've gotten so much more, of the positive and the support around it. I think probably the best compliment that I ever got about the book was my friend Srinivas Reddy. He was a professor at Brown University for many years. He moved to Pune University in Pune, India, which is he's originally from India, so um, he went back there and did that. But an incredible artist, is a concert sitarist. A writer with several published books, a translator. He speaks like I want to say 7 different Indian languages. Just a very talented person. So praise coming from him meant a lot to me, both on like a critical level and on a just a friendship level. And after he was one of the first people that I shared the full manuscript with after I finished the book, and he had emailed me back saying, that that your book is like raga, which is the Indian classical music style. Is raga, and he just having my book compared to that level of art and that level of beauty, just like I'll never forget him saying that, and it was just a small comment just to say like, "Oh, your book is like raga," but it meant so much to me. So
How about your former student or somebody outside of your friend circle, but maybe went through the same situation, similar situation?
yeah,
Have
no,
you gotten any feedback?
I have, yeah, no, I mean, I have one particular piece, which is probably I want to say like the heaviest. I mean, there's a lot of heavy stuff in the book, but it's probably the heaviest piece in the book. It's titled "Throwaway Girl," and I've gotten quite a bit of feedback from fellow survivors, not that I know personally, but just on the wider spectrum of that, in a couple of support groups around that, and just people saying that it gave a voice to something that they were feeling, and I really appreciate that I'm able to maybe articulate a more universal experience of program kids than just it's not just an Addie specific thing with a lot of this writing. It's something that most of us felt in one way or another. So in terms of like from fellow survivors, I think just that, and it was articulated in a few different ways. People saying like that it gave a voice to what they experienced, but those comments are really appreciated. I think it's an honor to be able to speak a little bit for this community. And I certainly don't think that I'm qualified to, but I'm honored that I'm able to. So
Now, before I move on to the last question, I
mhm,
have a question for you. So I have worked on 6 state bills,
mhm,
and that passed. One of it that's not passed yet. It's
mhm,
expanding the mandatory reporter
mhm.
for against child sex abuse,
Yeah.
such as library is not. Now, I want to tell you a quick story
Yes.
about town of Foxborough, where I live. In 80s, there's a guy who already died, but in 80s he molested hundreds of boys, lots of boys. He was a coach. He was a scoutmaster. There was documentary on him. His name is Bill Sheehan, and basically he used the middle school teacher, swim coach, um, scoutmaster, those kind of like a mentorship
Hmm.
against children and raping a lot of boys. And
Yeah.
then a lot of times that was silenced because he had a qualified immunity.
Mhm.
And then the town of Foxborough bravely formed a committee called Child Sex Awareness Committee that went to all the way to the state, because a lot of time modeled us because we mandated all the adults that come into the public building, even plumber, electrician, demanding darkness to light training, which is child sex abuse awareness
Mhm.
training that we are mandating everyone. I am a survivor. I even had to do it to volunteer at the Foxborough Cable Access. And we had a strict policy of 2 adults against 1 minor in the building, and
Mhm.
2 adults in the car to transport child after baseball or football practice.
Right.
That's not your own child. Anyways, then what happens is this is taking 10 years to pass, even just to mandate or no, expand the mandatory reporter.
Right.
That's such a minor thing to me, but we are getting death threats from like different states to
Hmm.
pass this bill. So I'm just telling you the magnitude of the changes. I don't know how long this has been going on, listening to you, Paris Hilton's story. Um, I feel like this industry has been penetrated, rooted in our culture for
Yeah.
a long time, and it's really hard to get rid of. Like you said, who is benefiting? Who's making money out of these children? We have no idea. And then people, to be honest, who are making profit may not know like how the money is coming from, where, because it's maybe secretly like
Mhm.
integrated in like very very vague way. I have no idea how this is okay, but
Mhm.
how
Well,
can
it's
we,
not okay. That's the answer, right?
well, I
But
know, how can we help you? And then you are wearing the shirt, what is it called, unsigned?
the Unsilenced Project, yes, unsilencedproject.org.
How can somebody who are listening to this podcast help you to shut down these places?
Well, I think the biggest thing right now is exactly what you're doing, platforming survivors. Getting more voices out there, and I think what that does two things. One, it gives public awareness because people who maybe have never even heard of the troubled teen industry now know what it is from the mouth of someone who experienced it. And the other thing is it connects a bunch of people together because when you do take down an industrial giant like this, it requires huge class actions. It requires large groups of people who are saying the same thing. So I think a lot of times when you platform these survivors, then they can kind of get in touch with each other. Maybe they didn't know that, just in the next city over from me, there's this other person who has the same experience. So I think that's the biggest thing is just, sunlight being the best disinfectant, and just platforming, platforming. If you know somebody, I would guarantee that most people, or a lot of people, probably know someone in their life, maybe not someone close to them, but someone who is a survivor of the troubled teen industry, and they're not talking about it. So be a safe space for those people. Be open about the fact that you have a problem with this thing, and that you oppose it, and that you are someone that they can talk to and not feel like they're going to be shunned or treated any different type of way. So it's about normalizing the conversation and platforming the conversation. And I mean, I'm going to scream about it any chance I get, because I hope that more people do, because it's that's I think the main thing right now.
Addie, I just want to shout out to you and validate your point, because I got my job as a journalist because I had no idea how I got this job, because I have no background in journalism. One thing I screamed out and shout out was a movie called Spotlight. Have you watched Spotlight
Not
by
familiar, no.
Okay, you have to watch, and everybody who hasn't watched need to watch. It's a Boston Globe investigative writer's long years of research of Catholic priests molesting children and then smoke them out. And then Rachel McAdams depicted an actual Boston Globe writer
Yep.
who investigated this injustice.
Yeah.
So I told the manager when I went to interview, it's in my book as well, that I appreciated journalism because major media sometimes has some political influences, but sometimes the journalists, we can exercise Amendment 1, which is freedom press,
Right.
to shed a light in injustice. I've done it through my journalism. I have covered homicide, opioid, different topics. Now, these are the things that you are saying about giving them a platform. I'm very proud to be one of it. And there's a movie called She Said. It's about Harvey Weinstein's injustice of sexual abuse against actors. And then there are two female New York Times writers who smoked him out, and then they were getting death threats from Harvey Weinstein, somebody like a big Hollywood producer. But I just want to tell you that the new generation, like your generation, my kids' generation, they are not afraid. They know that their body is their temple. They know a lot about advocacy. And then we, as an adult, I think we're doing a good job. Town of Foxborough included, I'm very proud of our work, because a lot of kids are speaking out of injustice, and it's okay. Now, I watched this supermodel from Italy who was actually assaulted by Harvey Weinstein, that collaborated with New York police and tapped herself and then just smoking out. Usually, we are scared of this Hollywood big time producer who has a lot of power and money. When he was prisoned, she was interviewed, and then what she said was so powerful. They asked, why did you support for going to the trial? What do you think of the result? And then she said, very poised, so beautiful. She's in her 20s, or like young, super young, I don't know. She said, well, that's where he deserves to be. There you go.
Right.
So you should never be afraid of injustice. Again, wrong is wrong, right is right. And whatever the political power that try to cover us of injustice should be ashamed.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you. Last question. What is a gift that came from your adversity?
I'd say two things primarily. Um, as I mentioned before, my faith, was definitely became so much stronger through this process. I kind of, I mean, I was religious going into the school, but I wasn't like deeply religious. Like I mean, like I had some knowledge, but I hadn't like really read the scriptures or like really prayed beyond just like, kind of like, oh, like a little bedtime prayer or whatever. But that experience really got me close to God, really got me close to my faith, really, connected me with that in an incredible way. And I'm so grateful for that. And I don't think I'd be here, frankly, without that connection, um, to my faith. And I think, well, actually, three gifts, because I just thought of another thing. But the second one, I think I have a much higher capacity for like gratitude and appreciation than I think I would have had previously. Because when you're in an environment for so long where like your body is not yours, right, and you can't even like move from one room to another without permission. Now, out in the world where I can go for a walk when I want, I can listen to the music that I want to listen to, I can pick up my phone and have a conversation with somebody when I want to have a conversation with someone. I'm grateful for all of those things, and I think those are things that are often taken for granted, by folks who haven't been in an environment where that wasn't there, and so I'm so appreciative of that gift that I can find beauty in those things, and just be grateful for that. And then the third thing that kind of came up as I was talking was, I've just met so many incredible, beautiful, powerful women through this process of, I mean, in the school, just the most beautiful people in the world. These girls are so strong, and the sisterhood there is so strong. Because that's how you survive that kind of environment, is being there for each other. And then, on the flip side of that, now as an adult working with other survivors, and just getting to see how incredible and how talented these women are. And there are men also. There are men and boys also who are in these environments. But just my personal experience that I'm speaking from, I'm really I feel really blessed and really grateful that I've gotten to just meet such incredible women through this difficult experience, this adversity, as you say.
Well, I think Paris Hilton has to catch this episode, and then we need to approach her.
Also, please, Paris.
Yes, Paris Hilton, we're here. And then I really feel like you guys have to have a coalition of voices, because more voices is better. And then I believe in change, and I've seen changes. And then I'm very proud to be part of the history. And then, I really appreciate you. Shout out to our mutual friend Michael Marlin, and I
Yes.
saw your performance at his birthday party. So I really appreciate you, Addie, and then I'm very sorry that everything that you had to go through. You have a long life ahead of you, and don't lose your voice, and then don't lose your um, justice. And then I really truly believe in your lifetime that using your voice and talent as a poet and as an advocate, something would happen. Think about the multi-generation change, and that's what I'm doing as well. So thank you so much for coming to a gift university today.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you platforming this conversation, and yeah, just these are important conversations. So thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for that.
Absolutely. And thank you for people listening and following A Gift from Adversity. We have more guests coming in. I'm very excited to create this platform and then shed a light, not only the adversity, but the tools. So we got this together. See you next time.